Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to do a weekly metagame breakdown where we look at the top performing decks, the highest win rate, the best decks in historic best of one. So we'll try to cover every format every week, best of one, best of three. We get the data from UntapedGG, what you see on the screen, companion tool that analyzes user win rates, so you can track your own win rates and combines it with other users, gives us all these stats in a nice bundle, and we can kind of see trends and stuff week over week. If you want to use Untap, the link is in the video description. Otherwise, I'll paste and timestamp all these deck lists so you can copy paste. So all that details in the video description. So let's jump into it, folks. And the question before we cover all that, question of the day, if you want to drop a comment below, is what is currently your favorite historic best of one deck? Curious to see where people kind of are settling in the format. But popularity of the day, what the stats are telling us is Boros Auras is the most popular in terms of games played from Diamond and MYTHIC Rank. The Omni Shifting Woodlands decks are at about 11%. Izzet Wizards, then quite a big drop in terms of play rate from these decks. You have Izzet Wizards at 4%, Mono Green Elves 4%, the kind of Reanimator Persist combo decks at 3%, lifegain at 3%, Boros Energy at 3%, Affinity at 3%. So from that point, it kind of drops off quite significantly. Just kind of looking at if we throw a bunch of these decks on, we see kind of the trend here where the Boros Auras deck in January, kind of similar to what we expect, just pops up as the season kind of starts off. It's a very fast linear deck. And then usually tapers out. We saw that, like, say in November, we saw that a bit in December. And then the Shifting Woodlands deck really popped off kind of comparatively. All the other decks have been kind of trending fairly static in terms of play rate. So looking at the kind of last week, the January 12th to 19th window, Diamond MYTHIC Rank, we had 19,000 games being played. And overall, what we see is Mono Black Sacrifice, the Jet Storm deck, taking the top spot. So some of these are a little bit smaller sample sizes, so keep that in mind. You might see a bit of kind of swings, but these are all kind of decks that are viable that can win for you in best of one. So how does this deck work, you may ask? So it's built around Jet Medallion and then Cthulhian Nightmare as kind of combo pieces. So Medallion itself reduces the cost of black spells. This allows you to basically net mana. So things like Priest of Gix now cost 2 mana, enters and creates 3 mana. You have things like Shambling Ghast and Freebooter, which could create treasure tokens, which means that your Cthulhian Nightmare can create a loop where if, for example, you have a Freebooter in play, Freebooter or Shambling Ghast in the graveyard, with Nightmare you sacrifice one, it makes the treasure, and then you bring back the other one. The Nightmare comes back to your hand, you get the treasure, and you can kind of just loop it that way there and basically create infinite ETBs, death triggers, and then cast triggers as well. With that, you could do something similar with Priest of Gix, which can create the mana required. From there, you win with having a Marionette Apprentice in play that drains your opponent out whenever a creature dies that way there. I've seen some of these that will play Tendrils of Agony, 1 or 2 of, as a tutor effect that you can then just kill them that way there, so you're not completely reliant on the Apprentice in play. There's Chittering Skull Speaker when it comes into play. Basically, each time it comes to play, you draw 1 more because its intensity increases. So this is a way to draw you a bunch of cards. You do lose life off it, so keep that in mind. And then Mausoleum Secrets as well as Diabolic Intent are tutors that can help you find whatever piece you're missing of your combo. You have Bogart Trawler, Fell the Profane as lands that can provide some utility, and then Phyrexian Tower can net you some mana with sacrificing creatures and setting up your draw. So Selesnya Devotion, Mono Green Devotion, whenever there's kind of in best of one, this flex side, Untap gets a little weird in terms of the individual pages. But this deck here is basically Mono Green Devotion with some white cards for utility, built around Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, generating huge amounts of mana. You have a Karn Wishboard that lets you tutor up Silver Bullet artifacts from your sideboard. You have things like Utopia Sprawl, Birds of Paradise to help you accelerate early. Fanatic of Ronus generates you net mana. Portable Holes, cheap removal. Elish Norn shuts off ETBs. Kiora basically taps and taps, pulls together a huge amount of mana. Cavalier of Thorns helps you dig into more lands. In a pinch, you also have Shifting Woodlands. That can be a copy of a creature. So then from there, you have Graveyard Hate with Karn. You have Mindslaver to take over opponents' turns. You have Pithing Needle to stop activated abilities. Portable Holes removal. Cityscape Leveler as catch-all removal. You have Portal to Phyrexia as kind of big edict effect, and One Ring for card advantage. One thing you might want to do is swap the Portable Hole in the side for a Chroma's Memorial. When you're popping off in terms of a whole bunch of mana and you make a big board state, if you have enough mana to tutor for a Chroma's Memorial, you just give your team haste and kill them that turn there. So you treat it more as like a combo deck as opposed to just huge mid-range value. So Izzet Wizards. This one's actually back about a month, but I just wanted to see which was the best version of Wizards. Wizards is very customizable. You have kind of your core cards like your Symmetry Sage, Soulscar Mage, Flame of Anor, Wizard's Lightning, but then there's a lot of flex spots. Most recently, the deck has been picking up the buffed Chorus Cycle. So you have Hymn to the Ages and Ribald Shanty. So these cards, they view each other. So they each have a starting intensity number, and then whenever you cast it, all the chorus cards in your hand, deck, graveyard, increase their intensity by 1. So when you flash it back, it also works like that. So Hymn to Ages, first one just is 2 mana, draw 1, but then it could draw you 2, 3, 4 cards, and it kind of scales really nicely. Ribald Shanty deals 2 damage the first time, and 3, 4, 5, same idea. Your Wizards package, Slickshot Show Off is, so this version's a little bit more aggressively slanted. Sometimes you'll see Snapcaster or Balmor also in there, but this one is looking to push huge amounts of damage very quickly with the deck. We then go to 4-color Reanimator. So this is the Persist combo deck. So this deck can technically win turn 2 if you get the nuts, but you want to put into your graveyard ideally a copy of Scholar of Ages, Emergent Ultimatum. You can also go like Capricious Hellraiser in this case as a 5th copy, or just basically one of your big spells. Your big payoff is the Emergent Ultimatum. Conspiracy Unraveler is another card that you can start collecting evidence, but usually requires a little bit more in the graveyard. So what you're trying to do is persist this back. Scholar of Ages gets Emergent Ultimatum, which then gets you like more Scholar of Ages or Breach the Multiverse. You can take extra turns with Expropriate, or so Expropriate's the new, I was playing Alrund's Epiphany before, but Expropriate's basically the slot in here. You can play Alrund's if you want. It's basically just taking an extra turn so you can attack that turn. Avergent Rejuvenation is a way to just get a whole bunch of value. You're basically just chaining together big spells once you get off. So put cards into graveyard, reanimate. You have Assemble the Parts that works as well for a similar idea. And then cast huge spells and mill your opponent out, take extra turns, just value them. We then have Boros Auras, so 73%. So this deck here is leveraging Light Pause as well as Core Spirit Dancer. So both these cards here get advantage when you cast aura spells. The Spirit Dancer draws you cards, individually gets larger for each aura attached to it. Light Pause lets you kind of toolbox and tutor for auras. This lets you find things like removal, like Sheltered by Ghosts. There's a nice play where turn 1 you plot the Demonic Ruckus, turn 2 you Light Pause, cast Demonic Ruckus for free, then you can find like Sheltered by Ghosts, All That Glitters, whatever you need with that case. This version is not on Amped Raptor, instead on Hushbringer. There's not really ETBs in this deck, so this is a way to shut off like the energy decks, the sack decks, anything with ETBs out of your opponent's side. Even that's like Reanimator deck that we just looked at, the Persist combo, relies on some ETBs. Esper Sentinel's a tax card that draws you cards, Giver of Ruins is protection, and then you have kind of toolboxy effects. So Ethereal Armor, similar to All That Glitters, that scales your creature. Griff's Boon for flying, Hammerhand for haste, Sentinel's Eye for vigilance, Shard Mage is a protection effect mixed in. Your mana base can be better on this deck here. I would play the full set of Sacred Foundries. You can also play like the Horizon lands, stuff of that nature, just kind of tweak up this mana base. Ganjo, you don't need to be playing this many basics. You can play a lot more duels in this particular deck. Moving on, we have Dimir Affinity. So the Affinity cards, the biggest buff to it is Seat of Synod and Volta Whisper, the artifact lines that are banned in a bunch of formats. So this allows you to increase your affinity for artifacts without having to play artifacts like individually. This allows you to get out 1 mana Thought Monitors or Thought Casts to provide you some card advantage. It gives you 1 mana Refurbished Familiars that forces your opponent to discard. And then you have just basically a bunch of cheap artifacts. Ornithopter with the Retrofitter Foundry combo. Tormod's Crypt as Graveyard Hate. This might actually be close to one of my original lists. I was playing the Tamios, and then the Tormod's Crypts were really good as a way to just shut off all the graveyard combo decks. Fatal Push's removal. Blood Fountain makes multiple artifacts that will help you get a Kappa Cannoneer. Tamio creates artifacts when it attacks. Very easy to flip with these two Thought draw cards. Metallic Rebuke as counter spells, and then Aether Spellbomb can bounce your opponent's stuff. It could also bounce your creatures to get that ETB value again. Then we have 4-color combo. So this is the Sam combo, 72%. So this deck here works where if you have Samwise Gamgee, a cat, and a sacrifice effect, cat comes into play, makes a food token, you sacrifice it, and then you bring the cat back. It creates a food token, infinite loop, drains your opponent out. With Bombardment, you also get infinite pings. You have Bartholomew as a sack outlet along with Goblin Bombardment. You can play Cartel Aristocrat if you want, since it's not legendary. I can give you a similar idea. You have the Ajani Amped Raptor package. Birthing Ritual helps you dig into your pieces, and then Trap Finder and Unlucky Witness are also card advantage engines. Very similar kind of concept. This one's more kind of aristocrat style, nickel and dime. This is the Mardu Sacrifice version of the deck. So no kind of infinite combo in a way, but Marionette Apprentice kind of acting as that Blood Artist effect, drains them out that way. You have Bombardment, the Amped Raptor Ajani. Thraben Charm can be removal, enchantment hate, or graveyard hate. You have card advantage engines and Corrupted Conviction and Village Rites that you can sack your small creatures. The Static Prison and Fragment Reality as cheap removal, and then Guide of Souls gains you a bunch of life. Boros Energy. So we're at the Ajani plus Bombardments section of the day. So right off the bat, I would say with this list here, 1,000, 10,000, 20,000% playful for Ajani. It's the best card in the deck. This is what's going to give you your card advantage engines. This mana base is a little iffy. I'm actually going to find a slightly better version. I know this one's winning, but it looks like there's some budget constraints. But the core of this Boros Energy deck is just value pieces. Ossel's Pride could gain you a bunch of life. Get you a bunch of tokens. They're cats, so it works in that combination. This version is on Jingantha, so you have Flage, Fable the Mirror Breaker as some additional pieces. But Restless Beovac's not played in the decks. Sundown Pass is too slow. You want untapped lands your first few plays. Should be on the full set of like Inspiring Vantage, stuff like that. So I'll clean up. I'll find a little bit lighter composed version of this. But the general premise still is in play here. It's just someone building up their mana base. We have the Omni combo, 62%. So this deck here is looking to put cards into your graveyard. Satyr Wayfinder, Malevolent Rumble, Faithless Looting, a lot of ways to draw a discard. What you want to do is find copies of Shifting Woodlands and then establish Delirium. Once you have Delirium in play, you can have the Woodlands become a copy of Omniscience. So you can free cast stuff, you can have a copy of Godpharaoh's Gift, which then allows you to haste out Ulamog the Defiler. It sees itself in exile, and then it basically annihilate 10s your opponent with haste. So it kills them that way there. You have Atraxa. Your Woodlands can become an Elesh Norn, so a lot of kind of plays like that with the deck. Things like Haywire Might are flexible. Surgical is a free spell that can also mess up your opponent's graveyard combo effects. And this list here, again, just the Rockvale should just be another copy of Copperline Gorge or Prismatic Vista. This is another way to kind of get lands into your graveyard, but these slow lands you don't want in this deck. You want to, again, be curving out and then ideally have a density of 4 so that this comes into play untapped. We then have mono green Elves. So this deck's looking to generate huge amounts of mana. You have Dorks, so 6 1-drops. You have your 2-drops here. Priest of Titania came out in Modern Horizons 3, so this generates a green mana for each elf on the battlefield, both sides, your opponents as well. Elvish Archdruid for all your elves. Elvish Warmaster makes an elf when you cast another elf. The Leaf Crown Visionary is card advantage, as well as a Lord effect. Allosaurus Shepherd and Elvish Warmaster are mana sinks that buff your team. Fierce Empath helps you find Craterhoof. Genesis Wave is another big mana spell. Just put into play a whole bunch of stuff, along with Collected Company, and then Beast Whisperer draws you a bunch of cards whenever you cast another creature. Nykthos in here, just with all the devotion, and then kind of interesting, 3 Boseiju seems a little much. You're going to run the risk of just having lands that become legendary themselves. I would probably trim down on this because you're already playing effectively 7 legendary lands, which can run you an issue in terms of hitting stuff consistently. And play 1 to 2 at most, just increase the number of force. You can also play Castle Garenbrig if you want as a way to just cast multiple creatures. We then go to lifegain as cheat.deck. So this is a deck I just want to show. Some people like the lifegain strategies. I wouldn't say this is top tier. It's a deck that could certainly win in some instances, but you're going to get picked apart by like a Johnny. You're not playing huge, like really much removal. You don't have much game against the all-in kind of combo decks, but definitely can steal some games. Mana base, you can play things like a Ganjo, Token Makers, Castle Ardenvale, just some utility lands in this mana base. But the core of this deck, try to get Leyline out, a whole bunch of lifelink dorks. So you have your Soul Wardens, Lunarch Veterans, Hinterland Sanctifier, Guide of Souls. Sarah Ascendant can get bigger, Ossel's Pride, Voice of the Blessed, and then Knight Errant kind of finds you more pieces in the deck. And then lastly, so this is a best of 3 list, but a lot of folks are playing it, and this is a deck that can translate to best of 1. Fairly easy. The only consideration is because it does use the sideboard as its win condition. So I'll just kind of adjust the sideboard to be 7 cards. This is Izzet Lotus combo. So this one is from Greenwire, but like Omni, another content creator, was playing it. A few of the folks at the top of the ladder are playing this iterations of this deck. So it's a Lotus Field deck that's using Deserted Temple to also allow you to untap the land. So basically what you're doing your early turns, you're using Expedition Map to help you find your field. You can stifle the sack trigger through Consign to Memory or Stifle. Artist Talent lets you draw discard, and then once you establish your lands, you could use things like Pore Over the Pages, Hidden Strings, Vizier to tap and untap your land over and over again. You can use Underworld Breach to then recast the stuff from your graveyard, generating basically a whole bunch of mana. Eventually what you'll do is use Wish and then get to the point where either you draw out your whole deck, you win with Jace Wielder of Mysteries or Thassa's Oracle. You can win with Tendrils of Agony as like a storm effect as well. In a pinch, you can also have like Mind's Desire as kind of a combo piece. So these are all ways to kind of protect or like win the game once you go off. But basically it's just tap untap. It's like Twiddle Storm, and you win that way there. So that's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what your favorite deck is, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for watching.